Pickett in the shotgun, gets the snap, looks right. Deontay Johnson wide open, touchdown Pittsburgh. The Steelers march it 92 yards to take the lead.
That's Deontay Johnson's first touchdown in what, a couple seasons?
Yes.
20 games. 20 games, are you kidding me? Way to go, Deontay. You saved the best for when the Steelers needed it most.
And Deontay Johnson celebrating is everybody in Steelers Nation today on Victory Friday. Hi, everybody. I'm Missi Matthews. Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. It was a thrilling win for the Steelers at Acrisure Stadium on Thursday Night Football, beating the Titans 20-16. Let's welcome in our panelists so we can break it down all for you. Arthur Moats, JMU Hall of Famer and Steelers Nation Radio, and Shelby Cassesse, a Steelers.com contributor. And guys, Bob Labriola wrote in his column today, it was like a roller coaster. If you're from Pittsburgh, you're familiar with Kennywood. I would say it's kind of like the jackrabbit. You know your stomach's going to go down. It's going to jump 2 times, but it was worth it in the end. Moats, what are your biggest takeaways from this victory?
Ball, right? When we're talking about complementary ball, being able to run the ball. We saw number one, Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris putting together a fantastic performance together and really helping the offense be sustainable. Deontay Johnson, right? Making routine plays. We saw that part of it. Defensively, the pressure that was created up front, Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, love that. And then creating turnovers. That's another part of this team. When we're talking about the 2023 Steelers, we create turnovers, we create splash, and you get the Quan Alexander interception in the end zone. I mean, across the board, I thought it was just a reflection of what we've been seeing. We just got more execution out of it early on in the game, and that ultimately had us, in this position to win. But it was very Steelers-like, including the heart attack at the end. You got to include the almost heart attack.
Yeah, that's pretty much standard sometimes with Steelers football, is a little bit of a heart rate issue. I know my Apple Watch has gone off a few times in the last couple of years late in games because my heart rate's up so much. But I mean, I'll say it before and I'll say it again. I will never bet against the Steelers at home in prime time. That is a game that I am always confident they're going to win, just because the environment is always right in the Steelers football wheelhouse. When I look at this offense, and a couple of games ago when they won against the Rams, I said, take that fourth quarter, copy and paste it, and do it again, because that's when the offense looked at its best. And I started to see that more earlier in the game. I mean, to have an opening drive touchdown from this offense is a sign of progress for me. And to see them stick with the run game, I wanted them to hand the ball off more and more, because that just seemed to be what was working. That tandem of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, when it's at its best, is pretty unstoppable. And I think that's what we saw bits and pieces of last night when they could really get things going. Defensively, it's bend, don't break every once in a while, but the secondary has dealt with some injuries. Minkah Fitzpatrick not being back there is just a significant, huge loss, of course. And Cole Holcomb as well going down early in that game. That could cause some communication issues, and they were able to work through those as the game went on. And it's that bend, don't break in the end, a big pick to seal it. And I look at the young guy, Joey Porter Jr., saying, hey, I'll take DeAndre Hopkins, and he did a pretty good job covering him as well. So that's the kind of competitive nature you really want to see in a young guy.
Shelby, you mentioned the primetime record and not betting against the Steelers under Coach Tomlin at home. Under the lights, 28-8 now. Just incredible when you think about it, when you hear the numbers as well. But Moats, because you love defense, we're going to start with that side of the ball and just getting Cam Hayward back. He said today on Good Morning Football, as you can tell I'm a little tired, he thought he was only going to play 20 to 30 snaps. He was in the 40s, but he said, hey, I got 10 days, I'm good. How much of a difference did it make having him in there?
Asking him, is he back? He really hasn't had the answer, all right? But I think he has the answer, and it is. He is back, ladies and gentlemen. It's beautiful to see him back out there. The team responds to Cam. When you talk about the emotional leader, when you talk about seeing the big man out there, it matters. When you watch him make a critical play on third down, when you watch him get a tackle for loss on a screenplay, watch how the team responds to him. He is their leader, and he's an all-pro. So when you're talking about Cam Hayward, man, these are the things that he brings to the table. And that's the thing that I love for this defense as a whole, because we got young guys that are playing well. Keanu Benton, he's playing well. Larry Ogunjobi looks good out there. We talked about DeMarvin Lee Al at times, man, making some splash plays. But Cam is the guy. He's our leader. And to me, man, just seeing him out there, I do feel like as a whole, this team feels a lot better. And you just watch him even right here. Big time play. That's the Cam Hayward play right there. Play recognition, great hustle, and ultimately the big boy aggressive finish. But that is who Cam is, man. And like I said, him being back out there was a huge boost for us.
Shelby, and we know how good. Oh, go ahead, Missy.
No, sorry, I was going to say also the outside linebackers. You're going against a rookie quarterback. I think we all can assume what the Steelers were going to do in that situation, but TJ Watt proved no helmet, no problem, can still get the sack. Alex Highsmith got 2. Even Marcus Golden. What did you see from that group and just how uncomfortable they made Will Levis's life last night?
Yeah, I mean, was that not the most TJ Watt sack of all time, to have your helmet ripped off and still complete the play? But this is obviously the defensive strong suit, right? These 2 outside guys, Alex Highsmith. I know TJ Watt made a comment last night. Like, I don't think people realize just how good Alex Highsmith is. It's really easy to pay attention to TJ Watt, and he certainly earns that attention. But from the other side of that pressure, Alex Highsmith just brings it routinely. And then you talk about Cam Hayward, adding him in the center there. To have that routine pressure from the outside, you put Cam Hayward back and have that push up the middle. I mean, it's unstoppable. And I mean, credit to Will Levis. I think he did well in the face of a lot of that pressure. But at the end of the day, it was just too much. They got to him too many times. And there was a big sack at the end there to help seal the deal and to really make things difficult on that last push by the Tennessee Titans. This defensive front is always just so fun to watch. They have absolute stars across the board and a couple of guys who are really up and coming that I'm excited to continue to watch. That is what makes defenses fun, and they continue to do it week in and week out.
Now, Moats, let me ask you this. A lot of the defensive guys said after the game in the locker room that at halftime it was, guys, we're not communicating enough. We need to do a better job. You knew there was no Mika Fitzpatrick, and then you lose Cole Holcomb. Is it as simple as just over-communicating to be able to do what they did, getting those multiple defensive stops in the second half?
And at the same time, I do feel like simplifying it helps. And I think at times we did that also, just in the sense of JPJ, we're not going to overcomplicate this thing. D-Hop is your guy. Go follow him. We rarely see that. We get a lot of wide receivers on linebackers, and then we're complaining about watching the wide receiver run by the linebacker repeatedly, right? But yesterday we said, you know what, we're not going to overcomplicate this. Yeah, we're down Cole Holcomb, but we know we got personnel that can actually match up like this now and alleviate some of the loss of some of those players, alleviate not having to make a Fitzpatrick out there. As a whole, when you simplify it like that in some of them instances, man, I thought it was beautiful. But yeah, the communication, the attention to detail was huge. And I like the fact that mistakes that were made in the first half on the back end in terms of dropping certain routes, certain little rules that, you know, we have specifically in this defense. It was good to see in the second half they were able to make those adjustments and not have them same type of critical errors, because that is really the difference between winning and losing in this league.
Shelby, you mentioned Joey Porter Jr. Facing DeAndre Hopkins, raising his hand. He even said Coach Tomlin was maybe a little weary about putting the rookie on a guy like that, especially after the game he was coming off of. I'll throw this to both of you. What did he do so well, and is there anything we learned about him that maybe we didn't already know?
Well, I think for me, I mean, you knew he was a competitor. Well, I know he's technically a second-round pick, but for lack of a better word, first-round pick. You know, you expect them to have a competitive nature. We know what Porters are like here in this town, and I expected him to be equally as competitive, if not more, than his dad. So I knew he'd have that competitive nature. But as a rookie, as someone who I think just got his first official start last week, to go up to your head coach and say, I got this guy who is a borderline Hall of Famer at this point, who's had an illustrious career in the NFL, and who, by the way, still looked pretty dang good out there last night, I think just shows how competitive he is and how willing he is to step up. I truly think Joey Porter Jr. is a budding superstar, and to accept that challenge so early on in your career and do a good job with it, I think is so impressive and just so telling about what kind of guy he is. There were a few times where he struggled. He had a few penalties called on him in that matchup. But at the end of the day, the statistics look good. He didn't allow much room to run for DeAndre Hopkins. He kept things pretty close late in games. He didn't allow Hopkins to get too much separation. This is exactly what you want to see for a rookie who steps up and says, let me defend one of the best wide receivers in the league right now.
Just that, in terms of him, asking for the assignment. I love the fact when they did the intros last night.
Yes.
Notice he put the kick out. That's the 5-5 kick. So when you said there is nothing else to do but kick butt. And I thought just in terms of his intensity, one of the big reasons why DeAndre Hopkins was so successful a week ago, he was playing bully ball with the DBs. You would watch him literally throw the corner out the way, and the corners accepted it. Either that or they were hoping for a penalty, but it's an offensive league, so you got to fight back. To me, watching JPJ on that first deep throw, you're like, okay, he's not allowing DeAndre Hopkins to just throw him out the way. Then as the game progressed, we're like, oh, he's really responding with this physicality. This is beautiful to see a guy that we felt like had a specific skill set that does combat a DeAndre Hopkins type extremely well. It was good to see it actually come to fruition in stadium. And for JPJ, just think about the confidence boost that was. You faced a Devontae Adams and had success. You matched up against the Odell Beckham Jr. You got an interception in the end zone. Now you're going against the DeAndre Hopkins and you get to follow him around and essentially you shut him down. Man, I'm super excited to see what's next on his list because he's really showing us that the sky is truly the limit with him right now.
I do want to talk about the offense, but Moats, did it make sense how they slowly brought JPJ along before they anointed him as the guy?
On the side of I would rather be a week or two too late than a week or two too early.
Okay.
I know that's always going to be that back and forth because it's about the timing of it. Do you think he's ready? How soon? I'm always in the reason why I'm very cautious with it is because you can't undo negativity. If he goes out there too soon and, a bad play happens, it's hard to get that off his tape. It's hard to even erase that from our minds as fans. But when you're watching them get the slow sample, it's like, come on. We want more. Now it's to the point we're starving for it, but he's really able to deliver it with confidence going forward. And I think that was critical in terms of, rolling him out. But now he's out there. I don't want to see 24 on the sideline ever again.
All right, now we're going to talk about the Steelers offense. Shelby, you mentioned the opening drive touchdown. The Steelers have not done that since week 15 of last season. That was Mitch Trubisky. For Kenny Pickett, you have to go back to week 6 against Tampa Bay. But they did prove last year they can score on the opening drive. What do you make of that and how they can build on it and also get a little bit more consistent throughout the game so it's not just first quarter and fourth quarter, here's the Steelers offense?
Yeah, I mean, it was a test right off the bat, right? You hear the way the coin toss goes and the Steelers are getting the ball first, and it's going to be a big test for them because, are you going to make do with what you have here and put a couple of points on the board or at least get a push into the red zone? And then, you don't get the ball back at halftime. So this is your big opportunity to really make an opening statement in this game. And when the Steelers are in a rhythm offensively, you can just feel it. You can just feel when it's working well, like it was here on this first drive. And again, staying committed to the run, not trying to force too much, just continuing to simplify, making sure your matchups are advantageous to your wide receivers. There were some accuracy issues as the game went on. And I think to answer your question about how do we keep things consistent throughout, that's one place to start. I think a couple of points were probably left on the board with some overthrows, with some throws that were a little off base. And so that's one area to continue working on. But when you look at the rhythm here, a really good mix of run and pass with a little bit more emphasis on the run, that's when things really go a bit more up-tempo. And credit to this offensive line. I think this was probably the most cohesive and complete game they've played. They really weren't in Kenny Pickett's face too much, except for right here, of course. But, he really did have a clean pocket to work with most of the game. They opened some things up in the run. And so all phases of this offense had points in the game where they were really working well together. And I think that's just what you have to continue to focus on is keeping that balanced attack, commit to the run a little bit more, and just work on those accuracy things and that communication with your receivers. And maybe we'll see that a bit more.
Moats, she mentioned the offensive line and number 77, Broderick Jones. We saw him get the start at right tackle. How much of a difference did that make, not just for the offensive line, but the offense as a whole?
was a big step in the right direction, specifically in the run game. We know Chooks, in terms of what he does well, is more pass protection versus the run part of it. Whereas for Broderick, coming out of college, that was one of the things that really had a lot of us excited about him. And you can see on multiple runs, whether it was him as a puller or him at the point of attack versus the down lineman, or him climbing to the second level to get to the linebackers, his finish, his ability to get to those defenders is really what, sparks these runs, specifically right here on the touchdown run right there. His ability to get to that linebacker is how this run is, instead of it being a 2-yard gain, it's a touchdown. When you talk about explosive runs, they're not just because the running back did something great. It's because the O-line got their first level, somebody got to that linebacker, and then that running back made that safety miss. And I thought as a whole, when you talk Broderick impact, that was it in a small standpoint. But then as a whole, it opens up the offense more because now we got a legitimate running game. Now Jalen is back there, and you can see how at times Matt Canada would use that to his advantage. We line up like we're about to run this ball, and nope, all right, we're going to quick release for a pass. All right, we're going to get Deontay real quick on a now route. Oh, now you think we're going to do the QB sneak tush push? Man, let's jet sweep you real quick. A lot of that was predicated off of the success we had running the football, and to me, we got to be able to replicate this going forward because our offense is way more dynamic and explosive with that.
Shelby, another change to the Steelers offense last night was offensive coordinator Matt Canada was down on the sideline. I can tell you from being down there and having to follow him a lot last night, it was good to see him work the bench, talking to individual players from O-line, tight ends, running backs, not just sitting there with Kenny Pickett. Do you think that's something, because it worked well and players liked it, will continue moving forward?
Yeah, if all parties liked it, if they felt it was effective, I don't see why it shouldn't continue. I mean, I'd have to imagine having the guy who's calling your offense down there to have those conversations a bit more in depth in between series has to help in some regard. It has to make you get on the same page a little bit more. If he's communicating up in the booth, he can communicate that down to the guys there. They can have a bit more of an extended conversation about things. It also gives players the chance to say, hey, here's what I saw. This is what worked. This is what wasn't working. Maybe let's try this. I'm sure it leads to a bit more of a detailed conversation between Matt Canada and his offense that can lead to some of those concepts we saw a bit more on the field last night. More communication is never a bad thing, and I think that's just what that allows to happen when you have your offensive coordinator down on the sideline. It just gives everyone an open opportunity to say how they're feeling, to say what they're seeing, and it leads to more productivity.
Moats, the Steelers had what we would consider maybe an earlier bye week, but being that this was Thursday night football, had to get through a short week, you get the win, now you have the 10 days off before your next game. How huge is that at the midway point in the season?
Talking about getting guys back healthy. You think about it. Kenny's coming into this game leaking oil, right? We knew the ribs were at least bruised in some capacity. When we talk about Deontay Johnson, he's recently coming back from being on injured reserve from a hamstring injury. Cam Hayward coming back from having a groin injury, right, where he had to get, he had to have extra work done on him, right? So as a whole, when you're talking about having this 10-day, layoff, this 10-day pseudo bye week, you give all those guys just ample time to get closer to be 100%. At this stage in the season, nobody's 100%. We started to go a little bit down, but at least this is going to give them a pseudo chance to recharge. And I think that that's critical because this is that time of year where we got to really make a push. If we're going to be the team that we think we're capable of being, we always talk about it, pre-bye versus post-bye. November football, December football. And Coach Simon prides himself on those things specifically. So I know from experiences how those messages are going. So yes, this 10-day period is going to be crucial for these guys down the stretch.
I think it's huge too because of how early their actual bye was in the season, week 6. That's really, really early to have a bye. You got a lot of season left after that. And so to have these 2 mini buys, this one this week and then one at the beginning of November, I believe, after a Thursday night game against the Patriots, to have those 2 mini buys, that's going to be huge to keep them as healthy as possible down the stretch of the season, because that week 6 bye is just a little bit on the brutal side, I think, in terms of staying healthy the rest of the year. So these 2 Thursday night games, I think, are going to be huge in helping them stay healthy and make a final push here.
The good news, too, no airplanes this weekend, no airplanes next weekend. Green Bay Packers come to Acrisure, and then the next game's in Cleveland, so still not on an airplane, which is good in terms of healing the body and not worrying about the travel as well. So, guys, happy Victory Friday to all who celebrate. Appreciate your time and your analysis, and thanks to everybody at home for watching. This has been the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. We'll see everybody after the Packers game.